Welcome to the Christina Crooks Show, where you not only get to know the many versions of moi, but also the rich tapestry of humanity. I invite you to bring your full curiosity and listen as we journey through people's stories and expertise. I hope you walk away with insights and inspiration and new possibilities bubbling up inside of your soul. The reason it's called the Christina Crooks Show is because here's the thing. I don't always want to do the same thing. I like a variety in my life. I like to explore different rabbit holes and different people and different interests. So together in this podcast, that's exactly what we'll do. Have fun, and we'll see you soon. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Christina Crooks Show. In this episode, I am with Cliff Ravenscraft. Cliff is someone I met yet again on Clubhouse, and we've had many wonderful conversations in Clubhouse rooms. We've had them one-on-one. We did a little stint over on Wisdom for a moment where we did a tech talk. So we've had multiple variations of conversations. Let me tell you a little bit about who Cliff is. Cliff Ravenscraft is a business mentor, a professional coach, and motivational speaker. His focus is to help you break free from any beliefs and or behaviors that are holding you back from living the life of your dreams and doing the work you feel most called to do in this world. Now, that's just a brief intro, and I would love to give you all so much more of what Cliff is, but I think I'll let him do that. I'll let him allow you to discover him through his words because he has a lot to say. And there are just so many beautiful nuggets of what Cliff shares. So Cliff, welcome to the show.
Christina, I am delighted to be here. Thank you for the honor.
I'm so glad that you're here. So tell me, how's your day going?
My day, as you know, has never been better. It gets better every single millisecond of the day.
You are one of very few people, my friend, that has that response as I do. And normally it's, it just gets a little better every day.
Yeah, it does. I mean,
it really does.
I have people that challenge me every now and then. That can't be right. Don't you mean you can't tell me you don't ever have a down day? And well, you explain to me what a down day is. Well, you mean there are things that go wrong in your life, and I'm like, well, no, I don't believe that things ever go wrong in my life. And he goes, so that means that you never have anything bad. Well, it depends on, you'd have to define bad for me, and all this other stuff. But if you're trying to ask me, do I ever have things that show up in my life that are unexpected, undesirable, and inconvenient? Yeah, that stuff happens to me from time to time, sometimes more frequently in certain seasons than others. But none of that is actually bad. It's not a label that I choose to put on it. I use language very intentionally. So when I think about something that shows up into my life, it's unexpected. It's not a huge problem. It's not a major issue. It's not, oh my gosh, this is totally going to derail my purpose for living. It's undesirable. It's unexpected. It might be a little inconvenient. I choose to use those kind of descriptors, but even those things, back in the day when I used to use labels like "this is terrible," "this is horrible," "I can't believe this is happening to me," and all that other stuff, the worst labels I used to place on the worst things that have ever happened in my life, today I look back and see them for the gift that they were.
That's the juice. That's the juice of life, is being able to look back at challenges you've had and go, wow, what a gift. What a gift.
Yeah.
How much has your spiritual journey impacted that belief?
Well, it's hard to say. Well, obviously, my spiritual journey, I think, is that perception of life first and foremost. And the question is where did my spiritual journey begin? And we could go down into some really deep rabbit holes and tell you that there is no such thing as the beginning of it, because I'm an eternal spiritual being, just simply having a temporary current human experience known as Cliff Ravenscraft.
I love it. I love it. But
So
tell me,
my spiritual journey, is there anything outside of a spiritual journey? I'm not
oh,
aware of such a thing.
we could riff on that life
I know.
philosophy
I
all
know.
day. All day. As an ontologist, that is my work, right? Is to distinguish reality. What is reality for each of us? What is reality for me? What is it right now? And how is my reality different now than it was before? And how can I create it to be something else or not just allow it to flow through me? I told
Yeah.
you before we got on this call that today was a day of flow where time seemed to not matter.
Yeah. I love those days. I love those days. But going back to your question though, there are so many different seasons of my conscious awareness of the spiritual journey. And yeah, my friend Michael Stelzner used to ask me all the time, Cliff, that can't be right. He'd be the one who would challenge me. And he just started challenging that probably about 3 to 4 years ago. And what was funny is I went back and launched a old podcast, relaunched it, brought it back, put some new podcast episodes in. And as I was doing that, I was listening to some episodes in the archive, and I found this old GSPN community uh, call. It was a live call with a bunch of people from my community at the time, and it was more than 15 years ago. And somebody says, "Hey, Cliff, how are you doing?" And I said, "Never been better. Gets better every single minute of the day." I was like, "Wait a second. I was saying that 15 years ago
I got
because
it. I got to tell you, just
15 years ago, Cliff didn't have the mindset that he has today."
I love that. And I'll let you finish that, but I have to interject and share this with you. I thought that I had acquired the term whispers, listening to whispers, by interacting with Glenn Morshower on Clubhouse, who's become a friend. I just say his full name for people that don't know who we're talking about, just this Glenn person. And he says whispers all the time. And I saw this post just a week ago on Facebook that I did a year before I met him that said, follow your whispers. And I was
Nice.
like, oh, that's why we connected, because I was already using the language that would attract someone that's using the language.
Yeah, I love that.
So same thing, continue.
No, I made my point. It just I think the question was, what impact has your spiritual journey had on this overall philosophy that life is always going well? And the answer is, it's just always been a natural occurrence for me, except for back when I used to not be consciously aware of it. But even then, there's something about me that just knew that, yeah, this, because I used to really get down in the dumps about situations, problems that would occur and obstacles that would stand in my way and knock me down again and all the other stuff. But even then, I recognized this fact that the struggle is making me stronger. So that when I went into my physical fitness journey, for example, going in and lifting heavy weights and walking out of the gym and not being able to lift up my phone to do a selfie because I totally destroyed and ripped apart and shredded every fiber of the muscle in my arm.
No reps left in reserve, huh?
None, not any. I seriously, I mean, it's like there were times when it's like, am I going to be able to turn the steering wheel? It was that bad. And feeling like, oh my gosh, this is so great. I can't wait to see how strong these things come back. This is awesome.
Mm.
And but I came away and it was so easy for me to understand that that's how our muscles work, because that's how our mental muscle works. That's how our emotional muscles work. That's how everything, the resistance is the way to growth.
100%, 100%. And I want to back up a little into more about you, just for our listeners and for our audience, because you and I know each other, so we can just jump into these conversations, which are so much fun. And I want people to really see how much transformation you've had in your life, going from your weight loss journey, your spiritual journey, your career journey. So which one of those would you like to go into first?
Yeah. Which one is most interesting to you for me to go into first? Because we could go into any of the three.
Yeah, I'd like to briefly cover all three, but let's start with your career journey.
I say career journey will be this. I spent most of my life working as an employee, and job to job, all this other stuff. When I got married, my mom and dad begged me to come work for the family business. They owned an insurance agency that was started by my grandfather in 1937. I said, I will come work for you on two. They wanted me for my computer skills because they wanted to digitize and make their computer, bring everything into computer systems. They had no such computers prior to that. So I said, I'll come work for the business as long as you, on two conditions. Number one, you'll never ask me or force me to get my insurance license because I don't intend to be involved in this business long term. And if I'm ever offered a position where I could be a full time pastor, no matter how much less money I would make, I'd have to have your full blessing to leave the family business to go do that. So I became full-time employed in the family business in 1996. I did that until the end of 2007, so about 11 years. And I was incredibly financially successful in that business. In fact, after a few short years, I actually ended up getting all of my license, sold auto, home, life, business, health insurance, all that stuff. One of the most profitable people I ever knew at the time. Out of all the people I knew, I was far more profitable than most everyone I knew. So I had everything going for me. Completely got ourselves out of debt financially. And when we first got married in 1996, I had tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars in debt. By February 2007, I'm full time debt free. So that was my career. I was next in line to take over the insurance agency for my parents. All the paperwork signed, everything, right? So I'm on route for being pretty much a millionaire and having an incredibly powerfully successful business that everybody recognizes and can understand and appreciate and values highly, right?
Right.
But in December 2005, I start podcasting as a hobby, and I've always been a tech geek and early adopter of technology. And so I fell in love with speaking into a microphone and having an audience of people all over the world through a very like strange series of events that are only synchronicities that I believe the universe can bring. I had tens of thousands of people all over the world who were listening to my voice and who would then send me all these emails. Oh my gosh, because of you, I've decided to go back and reconcile with my wife, and my kids have a dad in their life again. Because of you and what your wife shared about your debt journey, we're now debt free. Because of you, and I have 3 handwritten letters behind me. Because of you and something you said in a podcast, I chose not to commit suicide. And so I was having this incredibly powerful impact, and I had a heart for ministry. And my desire from the time I was a kid was to be in service to God, you know? So I did podcasting as a hobby for 2 years, and after 2 years, I left my career as an insurance agency and became a full-time self-employed business owner for the first time, and have I was known as the podcast answer man. I started this company, and then it was a very difficult struggle the first year. Only made $11,000 net income my first year, worked around the clock. I landed in the hospital at the end of the first year, almost died. I weighed almost 300 pounds at the time. I was the most unhealthy physically person you could imagine. I surprisingly had a roller coaster affair with my emotional state. So I had the highest highs, I had the lowest lows. After my first year of business, I made $11,000 net income for all of that time, effort, and energy. But I got out of all of those situations, learned that I needed to apply some of this stuff that I've heard about, this personal development, and began reading tons of books, applying the mastermind principle that I learned about in Think and Grow Rich. And I eventually turned that business into something that easily generated over $500,000 a year, personally responsible for training more than 40,000 people how to launch a podcast. After about 11 or 12 years of that, got incredibly bored with teaching people what cables they need and how to solve the buzzing issue in their noise, and why is their most recent episode taking more than 3 minutes to show up in all the podcast directories. So I decided, you know what? There's something more I want to do with my life. I want to get back into this ministry and impact and influence stuff. And so it took me about 3 years to come up with the perfect plan for me to completely set aside a $500,000 a year business as the podcast answer man, and to get to the place where I'd make at least $240,000 a year only doing what I love, considered my zone of genius. I know you had Gay Hendricks on in a previous episode. but only doing my zone of genius and working no more than 15 hours a week, 3 days a week, giving myself every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off. And so, yeah, I implemented that plan. And for the last 4.5 years, I've been the mindset answer man. So that's my career progress.
I love it. I love it. And for our listeners, and I may not have told you this, but this whole podcast was inspired by conversations with us. And I had a session with you where I said, I was really tripping up over the tech and the gear and making sure I did it right. And I'm like, you know what? After we talked, I was like, I just need to start. And I started on Anchor. And then I went, actually, I don't really like this. So I moved it over to Libsyn. That had a little bit of a learning curve, but I just like it so much better. And it was sparked by just the clarity that you have when we're in conversation, like, okay, this or this, okay, this or this, which is really cool to witness because that's what I do with clients. And
Yep.
to have it done to me was a really fun experience. And it takes a well-skilled and heart-forward leader and coach to be able to lead someone through that process. So I want to say publicly, thank you, Cliff, because here we
My
are.
sincere pleasure.
It's been beautiful. So tell me about mm, your weight loss journey. We'll save the spiritual part
Sure.
for
Weight
last.
weight loss journey is this. It probably started for me in middle school when my what I called my best friend at the time one day says, "Oh, looks like you got the Dunlap disease." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, it looks like your belly's Dunlapped over your belt." And
Wow.
yeah, exactly. And the funny thing is I think back at the time and I see pictures of myself at that age, and I was not a fat kid. I had a little bit of, I look like a normal kid, right?
Kids are
But
brutal to each other.
but man, did I become self conscious of my weight. And I would eat sugar and all this other stuff, and sometimes people would look at Cliff, he's going back for seconds. And I just became very self-conscious about this, and finally I just like, okay, well, this is who I am, and so I just eat, and I do this, and I'm inactive, and I'm lazy, and I'm whatever. And I'm like, okay, so I just so forget it, who cares about what these people think? I'm just gonna just be me. And I thought me was this kid who does this thing. Well, you that carries on for a very long period of time. Before I know it, I get married, and when I'm married, I look at back at my wedding photos. When I got married, the day that I got married, in my mind, I was an incredibly fat, incredibly obese. Oh my gosh, I am the fattest human on this planet, right?
Mm.
I could show you pictures of me on my wedding day. I've got all my wedding day photos. I was an incredibly looking, healthy, physically fit guy. All right. So it's like, what was I thinking? But in my mind, I did not see that. Well, after I got married it's like, okay, well, I just let myself kind of scoot along. My wife and I were eating out all the time and all this other stuff. And before you know it, you go along, and I had a lot of stress about work and all this other stuff. And I'm 240, 250 pounds. And when I became full-time self-employed working around the clock, I literally worked sometimes 14, 16, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, literally no movement. I barely left the house, it seems like. And as a result of that, by the end of that year, I ended up having massive gallstones, massive, massive gallstones, one stuck in my six stick duct. And ended up weighing 272 pounds. And after I got out of the hospital, I decided something's got to change. And I started thinking about this guy named Dr. James Dobson, who had a heart attack. And he talked about how he got so much healthier when he started doing this 10,000 steps a day program. And I'm like, maybe I'm gonna go get myself a pedometer, and I'm gonna make a goal of getting to 10,000 steps a day. And I'm going to first see how well I do now. Now, I had fully recovered from being in the hospital. I went out, I had got my pedometer, and I said, okay, I'm just going to go outside, go for a walk, and see how well I do. And I'll use that as a measurement, and then I'll just try to improve. And so I went out and walked. I got to about 380 steps and I thought I was going to die. No, I am not kidding. I got to 380 steps for the day and I thought I was going to die. And so I limped back home and I said, okay, well, here's my deal. Starting this week, I'm going to make it my goal to walk 1,000 steps every day. And I did. And I did that for a couple of weeks and then I changed it to 2,000 and I got all the way up to 10,000 and I did that very successfully. I also changed my food and eating habits. I was inspired by a podcast by a guy named Dr. Monty. He had a podcast called Fitness Rocks and he talked about the Mediterranean style of eating and and so I started eating that kind of food. And after about 9 months, I lost about, I think it was probably around 60 or so pounds. And everybody was so inspired. It's like, oh my gosh, you're the most amazing, blah, 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 blah. And I was on this major roll and I'm like, I've got this all figured out. Except for I got sick in November, I think it was 2011, somewhere around there. I was on a business trip. Turns out that I had the flu and I didn't know it. But I was stuck in a hotel room for several days. I was too weak to go anywhere to eat. And so the only thing they had was room service that I could order. And of course, there wasn't the type of foods that I would normally eat. And so I'm like, I'm just going to have a cheeseburger and french fries. And at the time, I had this mindset that it's all or nothing. And the all was I live a perfect lifestyle. I live a perfect I've got perfect records of working out. I've got perfect streaks of eating healthy. But then all of a sudden when I'm sick, I'm not necessarily in my greatest emotional states, and all of a sudden I eat this cheeseburger and French fries, and now I'm like, well, gosh, I've eaten this for the last several days. I haven't worked out. I've broken all my streaks. I'm lousy. I'm worthless. I'm horrible. I come home. I'm backed up on work. I'm going to go back into my old way of working around the clock, and before I know it, it's been 3 months and I still not working out. I'm eating crap food again, and I'm all the way up to about 265 pounds. And then began a roller coaster journey of up and down, up and down, up and down. And finally, a couple years later, it was in 2014. It was right around June, August 2014. Somebody listening to my podcast said, "Hey, Cliff, and he gave me all of his certifications. I'm every professional you could possibly ever dream of having as a personal nutritionist and fitness, guy and guru and stuff. He goes, I have all of these awards. I help all of these celebrities, and I'm a listener to your podcast. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have the business I have today. I want to offer my services to you." And he sent me that email. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. I said, I have to just tell you, I am in a place where I'm just sick and tired of just thinking about it at this point. I wish I wanted to change right now, but I don't. And I don't want you to reach out to me again and ask me because I don't want to feel the guilt and the shame about it anymore. Just leave me alone. If I ever change my mind, I was okay. I'm over dramatizing this. I was very courteous in my thanks, but I said thanks but no
very
thanks.
direct.
But it's like, listen, I'm not at a place where I want this right now, and I need to be okay with that, and I'm okay with that, and I hope that you're okay with that. If I ever change my mind, I'll reach out to you. But everything I said the first time was what was going through my head.
Right.
Okay. So I gave him a filtered response. He was very kind. And then I went to Colorado to speak for the first time in Colorado. And I went to the speaker conference and I spoke, and I've never been in that elevation before. And so I'm about 265 pounds, 270 pounds, somewhere around there. And I walk up a flight of steps and my heart is about ready to pop out of my chest. I'm literally thinking, do I call 911? Because I walked up a flight of steps. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I literally, there are very few times where I literally thought I was about ready to, like, I'm leaving the earth now. That was one of them. And so I just kind of come home from that just, what do I do? And I still don't know what I'm doing. And so I'm just praying, God, will you send some message to me, send some sign? Am I supposed to work with somebody? Am I supposed to have somebody to be a mentor? Am I supposed to have this? Should I reach out to that Glenn guy who emailed me a couple months ago? I just need to know. Well, November 2014, I am invited to speak at Michael Hyatt's conference called Platform Conference again. And this one is also in Colorado. And I'm like, oh. And just 2 weeks before that, I went out and bought a brand new suit to speak in because I had gained some more weight. I had just picked it up 2 weeks earlier. And it came time for my talk. We're in Colorado Springs, Colorado. That morning, I wake up and I put on my brand new suit, and everything's fine until I get my coat, and I'm like having a hard time buttoning it, and one of the buttons pops off. It is a brand new. I had gained so much weight in 2 freaking weeks that the 2 weeks that the button has popped off, and I felt like a fraud. You see, Christina, because at this point, so many people have been inspired by my fitness journey because of how much I've shared in the past. And here I am, the fat guy on stage again. And, and all, and of course I'm there to talk about my career and podcasting. And I get this massive standing ovation from everybody in the room. And afterwards, I've got 70 people in line to talk to me after my talk. And
Wow.
one after one after one, every one of them says something like, "You have no idea how much you inspire me. I want to be just like you. I want to do exactly what you have done."
Meanwhile, that inner critic is on fire in the back of your head, right?
And the inner critic is saying, and I'm literally thinking, I am a fraud and I would never want any of you to do what I've done. If you only knew how miserable I feel every day because of how stressed I am, because of how overwhelmed I am, because of how out of control and out of balance my life is. I don't want what I have for any of you.
Mm.
But Cliff, I'd really like your money. And it's like, dude, take my money. It's not worth it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And so that night, Ken Davis, who was Michael Hyatt's business partner for this conference and is a very well-known person in certain spaces, he sits down with me at the speaker dinner and he says, "Cliff, I don't know why this is, but I want to make a offer to you." And he says, "I'd like to be your personal mentor." Now he's 70 years old. And that morning he ran 3 miles up a mountain road in Colorado Springs, Colorado. All right. So he's incredibly, and he says, "Let me show you some pictures of what I used to look like." And he was way bigger than I had ever been. And he tells me his story. He says, he goes, "I'd like to be your personal mentor in your physical fitness and health journey if you would have me. I've never made this offer to anyone before." And he goes, "But there are a couple of things I'd like to ask you to commit to if you were to say yes. Number one, you'd read my book. Number two, you'll read this book called Younger Next Year. Number three, you'll make a commitment to working out 6 days a week, every week for the rest of your life. As a part of that, 4 days a week will be cardio focused. 2 days a week will be focused on lifting heavy weights. And the next commitment, you will join me and run or complete a actually a sprint triathlon in my hometown of Nashville, Tennessee in 6 months from now." And I said, "Well, let me pray about it." And he says, "Absolutely." And so about 10 seconds later, I said, "I'm in." He goes, "Okay." I said, "I've prayed about it. I'm in. Let's do it." And Christina, since then, I've worked out 6 days a week, every week, and will for the rest of my life. I've lost over 100 pounds of body fat and put on more than 30 pounds of pure muscle mass.
Wow. And wow, I can totally relate to that place when you've really just been debilitated by the inner critic and limiting beliefs, and it's affected your life and impacted your life in ways that dramatically limit you and limit your potential. When you've crossed over to the other side, which I know you have, it's just this incredible liberation internally where you're like, "Oh my God, I want to share this with everyone," of how amazing it feels when you stop getting in your own way of life. just yourself. And I have tremendous respect for you, Cliff, in your ability to be disciplined and be focused in whatever it is you're choosing to do. And you always do it with heart too. You don't do it at the expense of others. You don't do it by trampling over other people. At least in my experience of you, what I know of you, you do everything with heart and integrity. And I'm honored to have you here and to know you.
Well, thank you. I'm honored. And I know you have another engagement to come up with, so that we'll have to cover the spiritual journey some other time.
We can cover the spiritual journey another time.
Because
For
I
our
know we're not going to
listeners,
fit that into 4 or 5 minutes. I can promise you that.
I know. And for our people, we have to have a slightly shorter version this time for the podcast because I have some back-to-back things. Most of the listeners of this tend to be creatives and creative entrepreneurs. So what advice would you like to give to them?
Go check out the opening keynote address to my conference that I started with my wife, the Free the Dream Conference. The opening keynote address is available for free for you to view. It's called All Beliefs Have Consequences. And if you go to mindsetanswerman.com/free, there you'll see a 90-second video clip of me tearing up 3 $100 bills and throwing it in the trash, which I had a habit of doing that all of the time. And by the way, if you're a creative entrepreneur, you're also throwing away lots of money every day. I promise you that you are. And your belief system that you currently have requires that you throw that money in the trash. Now, if you want to find out more, you go to mindsetanswerman.com/free, put your email address in, and you'll get access to that 1-hour opening keynote address that will replace the old ones. And number 4, you'll learn how to condition them so that your new beliefs operate your daily living and also wildly transform all of the areas of your life, especially the financial stuff there, but every other area of your life as well. If you're interested in learning about how all beliefs have consequences, mindsetanswerman.com/free.
And all of your links, Cliff, will be in the show notes or the description of the episode. So I'll make sure to post that in there. So if anyone missed it, they're just listening, you can click on wherever you're listening to the podcast and it'll be in there. It'll also be on the YouTube one in the notes.
Nice.
So that piece will be there. And the final question is, what's your next big leap?
My next big leap, I'm in the process of doing it, and it is going from business mentor, into more of, I want to help people understand the deepest roots of their issues in this world, which is a lack of connection to the spiritual side of things. So everybody says, if I could just, if I, here's the biggest issue that comes up every single time I talk with somebody. If I could just insert any financial goal here, then I would finally get to the place where I don't have to worry about money. And the biggest thing I've got to tell people is say, listen, if anybody who ever told you that you have to worry about money, they lied to you. It is not a requirement. Doesn't matter if you owe the federal government hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. You still don't have to worry about money. Worrying about money is never a requirement. And here's what I will tell you. If you cannot experience peace or the lack of any anxiety, fear, worry, or doubt about your financial situation when you're broke, no amount of money is ever going to fix that. And I can tell you case study after case study after case study. I've worked with thousands of people. No amount of money will give you peace.
Well, and I find that with myself and with clients I get to work with, when it comes to that piece, the more worried about money you are, the worse your money situation will be. It just propagates more of that.
Yeah.
But if you're willing, yeah, go ahead.
Something I heard is this: money amplifies. And I got to tell you, as soon as I heard that, I've been evaluating, is this true? And it does. So I can tell you right now, if you have anxiety without money, then you could go make tons of money and you may very well be successful. You will amplify exponentially your anxiety. It is absolutely every single time. I've never seen where it hasn't happened. But if you have peace when you're broke, and then you radically increase your wealth financially, your peace will exponentially expand along with the money. Money will always amplify who you are.
That's perfect. A perfect stopping point. Money will always amplify who you are. And I totally agree. And we'll leave that for round 2. We'll leave round
Awesome.
2, money, finances, and spirituality, because I think that's just going to be an interesting combo.
I can't wait.
I can't wait to. Thank you so much for being here, Cliff. Have an amazing rest of your day. And I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Christina Crook Show. If you'd like to learn more about our guest, you can explore the show notes, and there should be information about them in there. If you'd like to reach out to me personally, you can go to my website, christinacrooks.com, and learn about different offerings we currently have, or set up a call with me personally. I hope that you take away some insights and some new inspirations, some new zest for life. And I hope, above all, you have a really great day.